I've been to South America several times and seen many incredible animals. It is an amazing place. But in all my wildlife adventures, I have never seen the apex predator, the deadly jaguar. These are elusive cats that are rarely ever seen and even more rarely filmed. I have seen signs of them, but never even a flickering glance of one. This week, it's my challenge using all means necessary by vehicle, boat, and on foot to finally see the king of South America, the jaguar. Since I was young, I had an intense desire to discover the world around me. That hasn't changed, just the level of adventure. Now, every journey has a purpose, and each time I venture out to explore new destinations around the globe, I am following my travel quest. I'm going to need all the help I can get to find my first jaguar, so I met up with famed nature researcher and fellow American Douglas Trent. Doug has been studying the habits and population dynamics of the big cat for over a decade. Doug is taking me to Amos National Park, one of the most remote in Brazil, where wildlife numbers are huge, perfect for a big predator like the jaguar. Amos National Park is located about 250 miles from the city of Campo Grande. Much drier than most of Brazil, it is famous for its concentration of termite mounds. There's no convenient public transportation to the national park, so we rent a truck and a van. Douglas is driving one and me the other. This is my first time driving in South America. I've driven in Africa, I've driven in Australia, I've driven in Asia. Never in South America. I always thought the people there were too crazy on the road to try. Well, here I go. It takes us just over 6 hours to reach our home base for the next 3 days. Just outside the park is a small town of about 10,000 people. It has a typical Brazilian countryside charm. One wonderful surprise is the Hotel Vitor, located on the town's main drag. It has a new, clean look and is a great place to stay while we explore the park. A walk around the town is a nice way to experience the hospitality that rural Brazil is famous for. Where else would you find giant birds and pigs extolling the virtues of picking up trash? It is the area's pervasive eco-philosophy that translates into the care and preservation of Amos National Park. The park is pristine with no hotels or settlements within its borders. Its remote location also translates into few tourists. In fact, in our 2 days in the park, we saw less than a dozen people. Douglas Trent's reputation as a wildlife researcher and community organizer has opened the park to us. Trent has been studying jaguars, river otters, and other megafauna in Brazil with the aim of preserving wild spaces. He works with local communities and property owners to open their land to wildlife in exchange for cashing in on the growing ecotourism market.
I knew an American here, his name is Douglas Trent, and this guy told my father, change cattle for ecotourism. And this American told us, I am going to send English teacher for you and your family to learn English. Now everybody in the Pantanal can see us working with ecotourism, independent, and the best business for us is ecotourism.
Amos National Park is over 500 square miles, or roughly the size of Hong Kong. And like Hong Kong, it is, unfortunately, an island. Not in the traditional surrounded by water sense, but large cultivated fields encircle the national park, making movement of animals in and out of Amos extremely difficult. With a huge fire in 2010 and another smaller one in 2015, the biodiversity could fall as animals cannot migrate in to repopulate. Despite its isolation, Amos was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2001. Every wildlife drive is a surprise, with species encounters that you don't expect. Amos was no exception. Our day in the park could be called the Fox and the Owl Day. Sounds more like a title of a nursery rhyme than a safari. Fox and Owl Day started out fast with the sighting of a large dog-like animal in the road, a crab-eating fox. In the rainy season, these normally nocturnal canines do eat crabs, but they are a lot less fussy the rest of the year, eating small rodents and reptiles, and often supplementing their diet with fruits. With such an exciting start, Doug is inspired to take us to a bridge where in the past he's seen a giant Amazon anaconda. This is another animal of Brazil that I have never seen in the wild, so I'm all in for the stop. Arriving at the bridge, Doug suggests we walk on a narrow path in the dense brush. There it was, at least part of it. Its massive tail was protruding out from under the elevated pathway. The dangerous end is the head, and the million-dollar question is, where is it? I met up with Douglas Trent, a wildlife researcher based in Brazil, to help me fulfill a childhood dream of seeing a wild jaguar. Our first stop was the remote Amos National Park, where he took me down a dangerous-looking path. This is a giant Amazon anaconda, the largest snake in the world. This individual is probably 16, 17 feet long. It's resting here, it's in the sun, but we can't see the head, so we're not sure where it's at. The girth of this is like the size of my leg. It's just a remarkable snake, and it can eat something as large as a deer. The more I looked at the tail, as crazy as it sounds, the more I had to see the head of this beast. Following the flow of its massive body, I figured it had to be under the narrow walkway. If I got too near the head, it could grab my face. Carefully. There it was. The head was huge. Lucky for me, she was fast asleep. Don't be fooled by the open eyes. Snakes have no eyelids, so the eyes always look like that. Wow. Yeah. It's a biggie under there. It was back on the road looking for the elusive jaguar when, remembering my own safari rules, I kept an eye out for all wildlife, and in Amos, that includes birds. Amos is a haven for birders with over 220 species. They are quite visible, and many, like the macaws, are a draw even for megafauna fans. The park's name, Amos, is Portuguese for rhea. These giant birds, relatives of the ostrich, are everywhere. Male rheas are hands down the winners of the Father of the Year award. In rhea world, it is the dad that raises the chicks, not the moms. In fact, the females will leave the young with the father and start mating with another male. But probably for me, the most charismatic and photogenic bird of Amos is the burrowing owl. If you visit during Brazil's springtime, you'll see some of the most adorable babies in the world. These little guys are no more than 8 inches tall and actually live underground. It is a survival tactic that works. In prime owl habitat, I counted a nesting pair every quarter of a mile. But they have an advantage here: the termite mounds, both as lookouts for danger and food, and the ease of making a burrow. These insect and small rodent-eating birds are, because of the mounds, one of the most prolific in the park. The burrowing owl's use of the termite mounds is just one way the park's top feature influences the ecology. There are more termite mounds here than anywhere else in the world, giving all kinds of animals like snakes, lizards, and of course the burrowing owl, a home. Termite mounds, as impressive as they are here in both shape and sheer numbers, are expected. It is the unexpected that really gets me excited. As we drive down the road, one of those moments suddenly popped up. A small, dog-like pup was lying in front of the car. Once it saw us, it took off and ran first away and then back towards us before it darts into the bush. At first glance, I thought it could have been an uncommon canine called the hoary fox. Sure enough, that's what it was. This cute carnivore is rarely ever captured on camera. You can't have predators without prey, and here, the biggest prey species is the deer. When we entered the park, the rangers told me that they were raising an orphan fawn at the visitor center. Since we were near, I had to stop and meet the little guy. I love baby animals. The rangers let me feed him, which turned out to be a test of strength. A challenge I did not win. Amos National Park in Brazil gave us some incredible sightings, including rare canines, the cutest owls on Earth, and of course the giant anaconda, whose head I just had to see. But the visit was bittersweet without seeing a jaguar. Doug assured me, though, that the best opportunity would be in the southern Pantanal where he conducts his research. So I jumped at the chance when he invited me to join him on one of his projects. At 75,000 square miles, the Pantanal is the largest wetland in the world. To get to his research area, we had to fly to Cuiabá, drive 3 hours into the Pantanal, and then take a boat another 2 hours into the wilderness. Given its isolation, I was curious what it was about this area that drew Doug in.
We see here, and what my research is also showing, is that you'll have multiple jaguars using the same territory because there's just so much food. Wetlands produce more biomass than any other type of biome, any other type of life zone. So they find much more food here. They're not as dependent on each having their own individual territory. So you end up with greater numbers of jaguars here than you do anywhere else.
Over the next 2 hours, unfolding before us was some of the most gorgeous scenery that I had ever traveled in. Incredible birds, bright green forests, and reflective riverscapes made our ride more of a picturesque tour than the route to our hotel. It seemed like the most peaceful place on Earth. But we were in jaguar country, and Doug would relate a cautionary tale to me.
I don't want to hear the details, but what kind of numbers are we talking?
4 people so far, 1 death.
Wow.
And 3 attacks.
Wow. And these are attacks on people for food?
It's hard to say why the jaguar attacked. We need to reach into the mind of the cat. But in every situation, the opportunity was there.
We prepared for what would be a long, long day, covering over 200 miles of waterways and battling humidity and heat in excess of 104 degrees. The trip along the Paraguay River was, simply put, beautiful. If I had come for the ride alone, I wouldn't have been disappointed. We saw an abundance of wildlife along the shore: capybara, jerboa storks, and caiman, to name a few.
From the hotel where we're staying at to the other side of the reserve, we counted 122 capybara.
Okay.
In a week, we had 18 different cats.
Okay.
Those cats quickly decimated those. Over 2 years, they basically took care of the vast majority of those capybara. And by 2011, 2012, there were almost no capybara, and the number of jaguar had just disappeared. Our last trip through here, we registered 54 capybara. Their population is now increasing, and thus we're starting to see jaguar increase as well.
According to Doug, the capybara numbers are now about midpoint between a high 5 years ago and the crash. That gave me hope of finding a jaguar.
We're about 25 miles from the Bolivian border. This continues looking much the same all the way into Bolivia. If we didn't have our captain, Wagner, here, who knows this like the palm of his hand, we could get lost and spend the rest of our life here.
Almost immediately, we had our first wildlife encounter. Giant river otters. What the heck were you doing back there? the heck were you doing back there?
Well, when Wagner and I find river otters, the giant otters, we make the noise. We imitate the noise they have. That makes them territorial. They lift up their heads, and with my GPS here and my camera, I get a shot of them, and I can get their throat so I can identify the individuals and mark them with GPS.
So their throats, every throat is different.
Every throat is different. With that, I've been able to document some 38 different giant otters in the region, and I'm doing a study of the individual families. But I got to get their throats to know what individual it is.
With time running out to film a jaguar, we decided to try night spotting after dinner. Night safaris are one of my favorite, since you get a small window into the lives of nocturnal animals that are otherwise hidden by the darkness. There are very few lodges in this remote area of the Pantanal. Besides our hotel, a basic fishing lodge, there are just a couple of floating hotels. One was just ahead. As we pulled near it, our spotlight caught a glimpse of eye shine. We zero in on it. A jaguar. Dave, our videographer, is one of a handful that has captured footage of all 5 of the big cats in the wild. The tiger, lion, cheetah, leopard, and now jaguar. The next morning, Doug shows me how he identifies each jaguar. With the GPS setting on his camera, he can track the location of the big cats. Doug has a database of face shots of jaguars. The markings are unique, like people's fingerprints, allowing him to identify individual animals.
So, we've got number 43, a new cat.
You don't have any others to match it against. Wow.
Others right now.
Well, you said that there were a lot of cats moving in and out of the territory.
Yeah, it's a very different phenomenon from what research has shown.
The beauty of these cats often masks a more violent side that ecotourists never really see. Doug had mentioned the human impact earlier. One of these survivors lives and works just a few minutes from the floating lodge where we saw our jaguar.
I have never met a person who has been attacked by a jaguar and survived.
Aí bati, ia pegar na cabeça, tirei a cabeça e coloquei o braço. Coloquei o braço, ela bateu a unha aqui, ó.
Hit the head of the cat took his arm, put his teeth in here.
Oh. Aí quando ela bateu, ela arrastou, eu botei o braço dentro da boca dela.
He fell back and his dog came and bit the stomach of the jaguar.
Aí que acertou de mim.
And he let go of Joan and went after the dog.
Did your dog survive the jaguar attack?
Viveu.
Yeah, he did.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Doug suggested we try one last late afternoon run to try to get more jaguar footage. What we had seen last night was exciting, but quite short. With the temperature still over 100 degrees, I didn't hold out much hope. But nature can often surprise and reward you for patience and perseverance. Another jaguar sighting. Unbelievable. On our last day, late in the afternoon, we finally hit pay dirt. And not just one cat, but a mom and her cubs. Jaguars are single parents, and this one seems to be doing quite well with a healthy litter. Time for celebration. Seeing a jaguar in the wild is rare, but multiple sightings in 2 days is crazy. I was over the moon, not so much for finding them, as for seeing the next generation quite healthy and ready to assure that there are jaguars in the future.